As many of you will have seen on Thursday, the Palace released a wonderful new photograph to celebrate the Platinum Jubilee of Her Majesty sitting in a blue dress in a windowsill. And there have been many, many photos, of course, taken of her over the years. And some of the main photographs that have been taken of Queen Elizabeth have been taken by two photographers who join us now. Ranald Mackechnie, and I know that I've messed that up, so I'm going to ask him how to say it, took the photo of the Queen that was released earlier this week, that one that you saw in the windowsill. And Ian Macdonald is a royal and regimental photographer based in Toronto. Ranald, forgive me for mispronouncing your name. Go ahead and say it for me so I get it right next time.
It wouldn't be the first time. It's Ranald Mackechnie.
Okay, I've got it. Sounds vaguely Scottish. Ranald, let me start with you. That photograph that you took of the Queen for the Platinum Jubilee, tell me about the setting, tell me about what your commission was. What were you thinking as you took it?
Well, we have been talking for a couple of months about this photograph with the Palace, and it was decided early on that they wanted to have the tower, the round tower at Windsor Castle in the background, which kind of limited that, guided us to where we had to shoot it, which was the Victoria vestibule, I believe. So obviously Windsor is really important to the Queen, and I guess a home location all helped.
It's not the first time that you photographed her. You photographed her with her heirs back in 2020, and I think we've got that photograph too. It was a really also touching kind of family portrait, but looking at the line of succession in the monarchy. 2020 to 2022, Ranald, how did you find her changed? How is she?
Well, it's a very different context. When all four of them were there, there's a lot of banter, and they're talking, and in some ways you have to kind of really make sure you get their attention. And of course, the shot we did, which was a week and a half ago, it was just Her Majesty. So it was a different context, and she has done this so many times. She's always incredibly helpful, courteous, amenable. So for me, it was just getting on with the job, and I like to think we got good shots a couple of years ago, and I got a really nice shot last week.
Yeah, Ian, you've photographed the Queen too. You've taken a lovely picture of her during her tours to Canada, but there's a lovely one that was on the front of Hello magazine where she's smiling. Ranald mentioned her sense of humour there, and it's something that people who know Her Majesty have mentioned several times to me as perhaps a quality that is overlooked a little bit when we talk about Queen Elizabeth, and that is that she's a wit. She has a great sense of humour. And what I like about this photograph is that smile that she had, the one that went on the front of Hello. Tell us a little bit about what you were thinking, what your relationship with her has been over the years.
Well, the first photo I actually took of her was 3 weeks after I got a camera. I was 17, and she was in Toronto as Colonel-in-Chief of the 48th Highlanders, which she has been for now 75 years. It's her first Canadian commission. So for the photo, I wanted to have the tartan plaid, which is the plaid of the 48th Highlanders. But indeed, she does have a wicked sense of humor. I met her when I was 19 at a private reception. She came up to me. I was in my kilt. I was the youngest by about 40 years of anybody in the room. And she actually kicked her shoes off and said, "Oh, my feet are killing me." And I said to her, "Your Majesty, I don't know if it's protocol, but I photographed your mother in Montreal a couple of months ago, and I brought some photos with me. Would you like to see them?" And she said, "Absolutely." So I took them out and showed them to her, and she said, "Do you mind if I keep these?" with an impish little grin. And I said, "Absolutely." And she kept those. And the next morning at my hotel room, there was a note slipped under the door thanking me for the photos and how much she enjoyed meeting me in my Highland regalia. But in this portrait, we were discussing a World War II veteran of the 48th Highlanders, and she just chuckled, and I thought, this is the Queen that I have known all my life, and I'm thrilled that people enjoy the photo.
You know, I love that. I love that story, both for her generosity and her casualness, just kicking her shoes off. And by the way, what were you going to say? No, you can't steal those photographs from me. I want them back, Your Majesty. That was clearly not going to happen. How have you found her change over the years, Ian? How has she changed, if at all?
I think I'm actually writing a book. And I've gone through, I'm a bit of a hoarder, so I've gone through all my records and old photographs and things that I wrote down in the 1980s. And I would say her dress sense has certainly changed with Angela Kelly at the helm. But I don't think she's really changed. I photographed her in Quebec City, and there's always been a tension between the Quebecois and the Crown. And I thought, ooh, how is this going to go? And she totally disarmed people in the crowd, and she was speaking in French to people, and they were astounded that she could speak French. And I think she's just been a calm stability, and I think, you know, it's a cliche, but it's true. Her grace has got us through hard times.
Yeah, I think that I think is one of the things that has made her have such an impact, that we have lived during the last 70 years. So much has changed in the world, politically, technologically, socially, and yet she has not changed. She's sort of stayed the same, and maybe that's part of her power in a way. Ian, let me ask you, do you think Her Majesty likes being photographed?
Well, it's interesting that you mention that, because when I was making the arrangements to fly to London, or to Windsor Castle rather, her secretary said, you know, she's only sat for 140 portraits during her reign of 70 years. Well, 65 at that time, but she personally has to say, yes, I will agree to the sitting. So it was a huge honor, and something that I'll never forget.
Ranald, when you photograph her, and you've now photographed her several times, do you get the impression she recognizes you? Does she say hello familiarly to you? Is she aware of who you are?
I'm not certain. I did tell her that it was my 4th time I'd photographed her, but I couldn't tell you that, whether or not she did. I think she'd be too polite to say, no, I don't recognize you.
And when you photographed her with her family around her, is it different from when you photograph her by herself? Absolutely,
yes. You know, there was just a lot of banter, you might say, you know, just it was great. I just had to make sure everybody was looking towards the camera at one point so I could get a shot of everybody, you know, looking at me. So that was fun. No, it was a really quiet portrait that we did the other day, and you know, I was lucky. I got a sneak preview of the dress that Angela Kelly had designed, so I knew the color, and we thought about. I just, you know, it's a very gentle portrait, I think, and you know, for me, that's what I wanted to go for, and well, I believe she's happy with it. So I don't think we'd be seeing it if she wasn't.
Never easy when there are children in photographs. Do you have a favourite, Ranald, of all the photos that you've taken of her?
I think the one that caused the most fuss was the one I did for the stamps for her 90th birthday. And that was the one when everybody was in a long line. And we had to do that because it was for Royal Mail and it was a set of stamps and they had to all be in the same front. And the thing that absolutely everybody was obsessed by was the block of foam pads that I had Prince George sitting on. So I'm kind of, you know, that's all I talked about for about 48 hours. So that kind of stuck in my mind. But, you know, the Platinum Jubilee, that's not going to happen again, I don't think, you know. And to have been asked to do this this portrait, that's special. So I reckon this is the one for me.
Yeah, special indeed. Ranald and Ian, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for sharing your photographs as well and your memories of working with Her Majesty the Queen. By the way, we just have some